you two are 25 years old, correct?
Yeah.
And you want my bank to loan you $500,000 to...
Well, maybe a little less than that.
to build a barn for weddings?
Yes. It's our dream.
Yeah.
How about we talk about some options and see what y'all are willing to do to...
We'll do anything.
Yeah, we'll do anything. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You're watching Storytime and I'm Cody.
And I'm Jessie, and today's video is actually just one in a series that we are hoping to encourage you guys to chase your dreams.
Whether you have experience or not, if you feel like God is pushing you towards something, we say go for it.
If you read the title, then you know that we did a bunch of crazy things with no experience.
Still do.
Yes, and today's video is how we opened a wedding venue with absolutely no wedding industry experience whatsoever. I don't even think I was ever in a wedding before owning a wedding venue, other than my own.
I think I was in one.
Yeah.
And for a short period of time, we were actually without a home. This should be pretty interesting for you guys. Let's jump right into it.
No one said chasing your dreams was without sacrifice.
But first, let's start with a little bit of a backstory.
I was actually a chemist before owning the wedding venue. Actually, after we owned the wedding venue, I worked several years as a chemist at a nuclear plant. I have a chemistry degree, and that's my background, professional background.
My career was an ROV pilot, so I worked offshore for different oil companies, and we flew these remotely operated vehicles, which is what ROV stands for. It's basically an unmanned submarine that goes and does subsea construction for oil companies, along with inspection work and all sorts of different things that robots have to do because it's at depths that humans can't actually do it.
He says all that to say that if you ever saw Titanic, at the very beginning, when those things are diving and looking around, that's an ROV.
Yes,
He controlled that.
We also had to fix them and keep them running, which was more like 90% of the job.
Yeah. So like we said, absolutely no wedding experience. I might have been working in chemistry, but not that kind of chemistry.
Despite having these really good high-paying jobs, we knew that it was a means to an end from the very beginning because we wanted to work for ourselves and own our own business.
Since we were in college, I always knew that my degree was going to be a backup plan to whatever we decided to do, because we just knew in our hearts that God was leading us to be self-employed, that would create more of the family lifestyle that we wanted in the long run. So what did? We got out of college and we got two very high-paying jobs, and we saved that money and acted like we were still broke as a joke college students.
A huge driving factor in the reason we call our channel Storytime now is because the jobs that we had prior to doing everything that we do now kept us apart from one another, and we would have never wanted to start a family with the crazy hours that our jobs required of us.
Cody would be gone like 3 to 4 weeks, and then he would only be home 2 to 3 weeks, and then even when he was home, I would be working 60 to 72 hours, so we might only get to see each other 3 days if we were lucky during that 3 weeks he was home. So it was very demanding and stressful for us. We couldn't even imagine starting a family during that time, and so it just was a lot of sacrifice, but like he said, it was a means to an end. So what type of business did we originally set out to do?
Ever since we were in high school, we both were into sports, and we were both really into fitness, and it might be hard to believe now because we had kids and our bodies have been on the back burner, but we have been really into fitness our entire lives up to this point. And when we moved to Arkansas, that was still the plan. We were going to open up our own gym, and we did not want to be part of another franchise. We wanted our own name with all sorts of cool benefits.
That was the plan. So we kept setting aside all this money, but we quickly realized that God was leading us to a different direction. There started to be gyms opening up all over the place that we were living in, the current area, and they were super affordable, and also the economy just didn't seem like that's where that was the first thing people were going to cut. If they needed to cut anything in their monthly expenses, they were going to not be going to the gym. So we were like, is that really a business that we want to get into? And like we said, God led us to a different route.
So what did we do? We had to go back to the drawing board after years of thinking that this was the type of business that we're going to open. We had to start over, and somehow or another we started leaning towards the wedding industry. Jessie and her mom actually had a garter business since
right when we got married.
Right.
Me and my mom had started making fabric flowers, and my mom still has a garter business. It's called the Heritage Bride, and we had started that, and that just kind of got our foot in the door into the wedding industry, knowing that it was kind of a booming industry at the time.
And now we live in this absolutely beautiful state of Arkansas, scenic views everywhere. So that started getting our mind thinking about other things like owning land and what we could do with that.
Being the OCD planner person that I am, I started researching the wedding industry, wedding venues in particular, and also looked up to see if there were any other competing venues within about a 50-mile radius. And to my surprise, there wasn't hardly any. There was like one or two, and they weren't doing what we were planning on doing. So I started running some numbers, and I said, hey, Cody, I think we can do this.
Jessie approached me with this idea. I thought as a man that this whole wedding thing just sounded crazy because I've never cared about weddings up to this point. But I trusted her research, and we started the land search.
He said, as long as you're not going to make me be a wedding singer. And
That's
I was
right.
like, well, I guess I can let that go to the wayside.
Searching for land, as you can imagine, with her crazy hours and me not even being on land half the time, was going to be quite the task. But somehow we managed to get some of the work done on that.
We actually thought that we would move a little bit more northwest of where we are, just because we thought, oh, that area is prettier. It's a more populated area, so we could probably have more of a chance of doing more weddings there. And we knew this was going to be several years out, so we really weren't in a rush to find any land. But my parents, we had told, hey, we kind of want to start this wedding venue, and my dad kept saying things like, I think I know the best property for
I
y'all.
have got the perfect spot. He would not leave us alone about it. And why do we not trust his opinion normally?
My dad just doesn't exactly have the best taste. No offense to my mom, she's beautiful. He lucked up there somehow. But no, he even thinks skunks, people, smell good.
He told us that.
Yes, he will pass it on the side of the road and be like, whoo, that was a good smell.
I'm never going to let him live that down.
No. So did we trust his opinion on a piece of land we should buy? I didn't even know if he understood what a wedding venue was going to be. So what did my dad do? He drug us up into a corner on Easter Sunday of 2015, and he's like, we're going to take a ride down to that land. I think it's exactly what y'all need. And we're like, okay, Dad.
I didn't want to insult him, so we were like,
Yes.
okay,
So
we'll do it.
he didn't even go get the key from the lady that owned it. It was a widow that they had met at church that they had become very good friends with, and it wasn't even for sale. But we get here and we get out, and there's neighbors pretty close to the fence. Who knows what they thought about us at that time, because we just hopped the fence, guys. We were trespassing, but Dad said it was okay.
We're trusting that Jerry's not going to let us get shot.
So what did we think, babe, when we topped the hill?
Us being from the city originally, I wasn't sure exactly what to think because it was essentially a four-wheeler trail to get back to this property. No one had kept up with a driveway in a really long time. It was completely grown over. We trusted that he had some idea that this place was gorgeous and worth seeing. So we start walking down what is currently the driveway that we still use. The property starts to open up a little bit, and then we just see this hill that starts to go upwards. Well, the grass is like 15 feet tall at this time, so we can't see what is on the other side of the hill, but we start trudging through this grass, and when we hit the top of that hill, the rolling hills of the property that we currently own drop down, and this gorgeous mountain view opens up. And it literally took my breath away. And I was like, oh my gosh. I literally grabbed Jesse's hand and I squeezed it. And I was like, I think this is it.
Yeah, my dad, he was right.
Another thing I did is I whipped out my cell phone and I made sure that we had cell signal. I remember doing that and I was like, oh yeah, this is it, because we had some LTE cell signal on this property that looked like we were out in the middle of nowhere, but we had the conveniences of the city, so it was kind of just perfect. We had no idea what else this property had in store for us. It just keeps getting better and better from here.
And I just immediately, once we topped that hill with my mom and dad, feeling God's presence. Like, it was just this anointing, and I still feel it to this day. And me and my parents and Cody, we prayed over the property because, I mean, we weren't even looking to buy land for several years, and I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I could tell that this is what God wanted, and God continued to show us that. And we're going to tell y'all a little bit more about that.
So we got in touch with the lady that we had just told you about, and we negotiated a deal, and in less than 2 weeks the property was ours. Now comes all the crazy stuff. What did we have to do to make our dream a reality?
We had to keep working, obviously. Now we had a note on a piece of land and our house, and we were still working crazy hours, so we were like, we're just gonna keep saving and saving, and we gotta figure out how to do this. Well, here I am, 25 years old. Yes, I had a college degree, but I had absolutely no business experience. But what I am good at is learning how to do something, and if I put my mind to it, I can do it. So every night when I would get home from work, when Cody was offshore, I did a ton of research and wrote a business plan over several weeks. I put together a business plan with a bunch of models, trying to present to a banker where they would take us serious. I knew that we were only 25 and this might be kind of difficult, but I was hoping it could happen.
Jesse goes and drops our business plan off to all these different banks, and we get a lot of negative responses, and their reasoning was that there were not a lot of wedding venues around here, so they had no comps to compare with. A lot of people had no idea what type of revenue a wedding venue could make.
They weren't really taking my projections very seriously because they had nothing to go off of.
Bank after bank, we finally stumbled upon someone who was crazy enough to take us on.
And we love her to this day, thank God. And actually, that banker's daughter is getting married here in just a few weeks, and I planned her wedding for her. Never know what's going to happen.
She must have thought she made the right decision.
Though we found a bank that would finally work with us, keyword work, there was a catch.
Yes, we both had really good jobs and our income looked great. But for us to own a house, 45 acres of land, and get approved for this business loan, it wasn't going to happen without making a few changes.
That is when we just had to put the house up for sale.
What on earth were we thinking, right? So we put our house up for sale and we were like, the market's not super good, so we'll have some time to either build like a little shop house on the property or get some type of mobile trailer that we can put on the property where we can have a place to live. And then when our house sells, you know, we'll pay for the trailer and stuff and pay for whatever building that we put here. And then we'll go back to the bank and then she'll approve us, right?
So the market was a little better than we thought. You know how we got the land in 2 weeks? Our house sold in 2 weeks. We literally had two couples fighting over our property. We were like, uh-oh.
We didn't say, no, we're not ready. We said, great. What do we do?
Okay, Lord, what are we gonna do? This is our home. This is where we live.
Obviously, with it being sold so fast, we didn't have time to find anything to put on the property, and we did not have time to build anything. So what did we do?
We moved in with my parents.
Greatest decision ever.
So just a little disclaimer, we don't recommend moving back in with your parents once you're grown and you've already moved out.
Not really a good idea.
Enough said. But my parents had a really big basement, and so we moved into the basement.
The comfort was not the same, but we were over the top grateful that they had enough room for us to stay in so that we could save even more money to put towards our dream. Now we're living in this basement and we're still working our same jobs, and every time I'm home from this job, I am working my butt off trying to get this property ready so that we can go ahead and start construction of the barn. We finally do start the construction of the barn at the beginning of 2016, and let me tell you guys, it was was a pretty rough process, wouldn't you say?
So I've never really talked to anybody that had this wonderful house build or any sort of build experience when they work with contractors. Our story was no different. We thought that we would both work for the first several years of the venue being open. The problem was when Cody was offshore, none of the venue work was getting done. We couldn't get the workers to do any work while he was gone.
Something to keep in mind is this was the first time we have dealt with contractors. I had a ton to learn about the building process, period. Jessie didn't know anything about the building process. She did her best to talk to the contractors and stuff, but they just saw this cute little girl who looked like she was 18, but she was actually 25 years old. And they ran all over her and took advantage of her and treated her as if she was really naive. Little piddly things would get done, but I would come home after working a 1 month hitch and look around and be like, what did they do? And she said, that's what I was trying to tell you. And fast forward towards the end of the build, we have our very first wedding in November of 2016 coming up. The original plan was she was going to quit her job first and I was going to still work offshore and she was going to just manage the venue. And that was also prior to us understanding what all went into actually managing this venue. I actually ended up quitting my job in 2016 just to finish this building for our first wedding.
The good news is that we finished the venue just in time. We were up at 2 o'clock the morning before the first wedding, installing ceiling fans. I'll never forget my parents came and helped us, and my dad was throwing a fit having to install some toilet paper holder things. It was a fun time, guys. So we were
all
exhausted.
The tedious stuff we saved for like the day before, which we had no idea how much of a pain that would be.
Thanks, Mom and Dad, for all your help.
This first wedding happens, and holy cow, was it a learning experience. And not because it was a bad group of people. They were all great people. It's just, imagine never hanging out with more than 10 people in your life, and then all of a sudden on your property you have 200 people here, and it's like,
I'm pretty sure it was close to 300.
Overwhelming. It was our first wedding, and I really think it was one of our biggest weddings we've ever had. Thank God it was the fall and it felt really good outside.
The learning from the first day just carried on into our first year. There were so many updates to our contract that year. Those weddings got away with a lot more, and we also became a little bit more lenient too. We learned what we didn't need to worry about too much.
Whenever we first opened, we were so anxious because all you've been talking to so far is the bank. You've been talking to your insurance companies, and you just don't want to get sued, and you don't want to catch your building on fire. So you're like super strict and stick to your rules, like super stringent with them. And now, like she said, we're a whole lot more lenient because we realize I'll choose my battles a whole lot better now and choose to just look the other way whenever people are doing some things, unless it's actually harmful to their health
or to our property.
So what all is actually involved in being a wedding venue owner?
We have people come to the venue all the time that are just talking to us when they find out we own a wedding venue, and they're like, oh my goodness, you are living the dream. You only work like 1, maybe 2 days a week. It's just perfect.
They show up to this beautiful venue with these beautiful decorations, and they're just googly eyed looking around. This is all the time, and they have no idea what actually goes into it. So we just figured maybe we would tell you a little bit of what goes into it.
We do everything at our venue. We do not hire anything out other than some help with cleanup and shuttling people.
We take care of the grounds. We clean up after you whenever you're here. We park the cars in the parking lot. She does the showings in the middle of the week. She does all the scheduling and coordinating for photo shoots to be out here, for all-inclusive meetings to be out here.
It's a lot of work, so it's definitely an insult when someone will tell you you only work 1 or 2 days a week, when the reality is we work more than we ever did before, even at our other jobs. The difference is that we get to choose how we use our time.
Our other jobs made really good money, and the venue alone in itself doesn't make near as much as those jobs did. But with the venue, we are able to spend so much time with now our kids. It was just us for a really long time. We get to be with our kids kids every day, every lunch break, every time that she needs me, I'm in there helping her. Every time I need her, she's watching the kids for me, and we get to actually raise them in a lifestyle that I'm quite envious of.
This is nowhere near the details that we could give you on opening a wedding venue and how to open a wedding venue. That's not what this video is for. This video is to encourage you guys, to let you know, go for it. If you have a dream, follow it. If God's putting it on your heart, then do it. Even if you do not have any experience, just take the chance.
You can make it work. Our venue opened in 2016 and it is November almost in 2022, and we're still here. So
it is totally possible to do it, but you have to be willing to make some sacrifices. Do you got what it takes?
So if you guys have more questions, maybe about the build, about our responsibilities here, about maybe some crazy stories that have happened since we've opened the venue.
Lots of crazy stories at this venue.
Anything you can think of, just send them to us in the comment section below, and maybe we'll make another video on it. We try to keep our videos not super long, so we skipped lots of details in this one.
But while you're down there leaving a comment, why don't you hit that subscribe button? It really helps us out.
And if you did like this style of video, like we said at the beginning, this is just the start of a series on all the crazy things that you can do with no experience.
Like the crazy couple that built a house from YouTube videos. Stay tuned.
God bless you guys. We will see you on the next one.
Bye.